My name is James Kaplan. I'm the president of the Lower Manhattan Historical Association. I want to explain our July 4th video. In 2014, a number of us who were active in history in Lower Manhattan got together and noticed that there were really no significant July 4th festivities in Lower Manhattan. Probably the most important July 4th public activity in New York City was the Nathan's hot dog eating contest in Coney Island, and we felt that was totally inappropriate. So we got together with our shared interest in history, in wanting to create something that was more historically oriented, and we began to form a July 4th parade in Lower Manhattan, this being the most historic area of the city. So with that effort, we have continued for the last 5 years. We start with the Hermione in 2015 and then have gone on. Thank you.
Welcome Hermione to New York. Vive Hermione! Vive Hermione! This project, this story operates at so many different levels. At one level it symbolizes a tipping point in history. The ship that brought Lafayette with a message of French support for General Washington and his armies, which led eventually to the securing of American independence. And the Hermione, the original Hermione, fought here in New York waters, notably off the coast of Long Island. But at another level, it's a story of modern-day daring. Lafayette's motto, "Why not?" describes this so well. Why not build an authentic replica of an 18th century frigate and sail her to the United States, to New York? Well, here she is. It was a little bit of a crazy question, and it started more than 20 years ago in Rochefort. The Hermione has made a triumphant journey up the East Coast, and on Saturday, the Frigate of Liberty will salute the Statue of Liberty here in New York. This has been one of the most significant public history projects of this century. It reminds us above all of what might not have been, and of the long-lasting friendship between the United States and France.
Now, John Adams said that July 4th should be celebrated with parade and pomp and illuminations, and that's the way it's been, as far as I know, throughout many communities, most cities throughout the country. They walk through the main street of the city, and the whole community comes out for the July 4th parade. And you would think that in the largest city, in one of the most historic areas of the city for the Revolution, that that's what happens here. But unfortunately, what we've found is the reality is that most people here in Lower Manhattan and here in the city go out to the beach or to their country homes, and July 4th is a day for backyard barbecues and other things. So we noticed that July 4th here in Lower Manhattan was basically a ghost town most years. Probably the major public event in New York City was the Nathan's hot dog eating contest in Coney Island. But we in the Lower Manhattan Historical Society want to change that, and therefore, particularly in honor of the Hermione being here in this great public history project that is here on the July 4th weekend, we decided we would attempt something, our most ambitious project ever, which is to have an old-style July 4th parade here in Lower Manhattan for the first time in 40 years. So I have here with me the borough president of Manhattan, who's been one of our great supporters. She's come out as everywhere in Manhattan. but she's one of the great borough presidents, Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much, Jim Kaplan, and happy 4th to everyone here. I particularly want to thank not just Jim Kaplan and the folks who are here as part of Independence Day, but I have great respect for the South Street Seaport Museum, and I want to thank the amazing director, Jonathan Bulwer, who's right here to my left. The South Street Seaport Museum is a very, very special place. I'm also here because we have this amazing ship, and the relationship between the French and the U.S. and the Americans is a long history that I think you know only too well, but to be able to have this beautiful, beautiful person, she is almost like a person, standing here in our midst on July 4th is a real honor and something to celebrate. And we look forward to having many more celebrations here, celebrating our history. Thank you, Jim Kaplan, for bringing us all together, and happy 4th to everyone.
Seaport. Now, the South Street Seaport has had its ups and downs. I remember in 1976 when it basically led the city out of its doldrums in with the parade of tall ships. But we're very glad that we have a new president who hopefully seems to be trying to bring it back to its doors of greatness. And I'll let Mr. Bulwer.
Thank you, Jim. Well, happy 4th to everybody, and today is a special day for a lot of reasons. Tomorrow we have the official day. We're celebrating today, and you today will be marching between two very important historical sites in New York and in the United States. So, as the borough president mentioned, this is where it began. Between the South Street Seaport and Bowling Green, you have two sites that represent the birthplace of New York as we know it today. They represent the United States as it exists today. Part of our work at the South Street Seaport Museum is to interpret and to tell the story of the seaport's role in the port broadly. New York is a city built on and because of its waterways. It is first and foremost a port city, and it is for that reason that we are the financial capital of the world.
Everyone here to march with us. Don't feel, if you haven't been invited, that you are invited now. So join us in our parade. The first group who will be leading the parade is the Veteran Corps of Artillery. They were founded in 1790. They're actually John Van Arsdale, who raised the flag on Evacuation Day on November 25th, 1783, when George Washington took the city, was a member of the Corps, and they're going to be leading the parade. So, can the Veteran Corps of Artillery come over to this area?
Carry colors. Forward, march.
Color guard of the Sons of the Revolution of the State of New York. The Sons of the Revolution of the State of New York was founded in 1876, I believe. They run Fraunces Tavern. They're a very active group, and they celebrate Evacuation Day as well as July 4th. The next group that's going to be in marching order is the Sons of the American Revolution, which is a national group. Wes Olar is the active chairman of the New York. After I understand, there are members of the New York, Westchester, and French chapter here. I also want to mention Brian Carter of the New Rochelle, La Rochelle Sister Cities Progress.
Past Colonel Commandant of the Veteran Corps of Artillery of the State of New York, and I bring to you the greetings of the current Colonel Commandant, Colonel Stephen J. Ryan, who has just returned from deployment in Africa. The current Colonel Commandant of the Veteran Corps of Artillery sends you his regards. As Mr. Kaplan said, it's particularly apt to be standing at this place in New York City, in New York State, in the United States today. After all, as he mentioned, a young man, John Van Arsdale, when faced with a British flag that was nailed to the top of this flagpole, and the pole was greased, skinning up that flagpole, and the last thing that the departing British ships saw as they sailed out of New York Harbor was Old Glory and John Van Arsdale waving to them.
In our Historical Society, one of our most valued directors, Wesley Olar, who is the New York chairman of the First Continental Chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, which is a nationwide organization of veterans and people, descendants of people from the American Revolution.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Arthur. I'm Wesley Olar. I'm very honored to be here representing the First New York Continental Chapter, Sons of the American Revolution, which, as Jim said, is a national and international organization of about 30,000 members who have traced their lineage to someone who served in the American Revolutionary War. And I'm joined here at this point by the members of the New York State Color Guard and officers of the New York State Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, Peter Goebel and Jonathan Goebel. And we're very honored to be here. We thank you all for coming, and God bless America.
President of New York, Manhattan.
Thank you very much, and the Lower Manhattan Historical Society for keeping our rich history at the forefront last year and this year. And I certainly want to thank the Consul General of Ireland and her amazing staff for being here today. As the borough president, I feel very strongly about the preservation of history, so it has been a pleasure to partner with Jim Kaplan and the Lower Manhattan Historical Society. But of course, Lower Manhattan was the first step in New York's history for generation of immigrants. That's where they came. And certainly it was a neighborhood where many Irish immigrants came, and they had no choice at that point but to come to the 5 Points.
The Grand Marshal of the parade, Maureen Murphy,
who's an Irish scholar par excellence. She's worked very closely with us, and she's worked very closely on the Easter, on the 100th anniversary of the Easter Rebellion, as well as the creation of this Irish Hunger Memorial.
Chun Hivnacon and Gorta Moore. 100,000 welcomes to the Irish Hunger Memorial in Battery Park City. You're standing on limestone pavers from County Kilkenny that are 300 million years old. Look at the fossils from the seabed. We invite you to join us today to our march down to Bowling Green. I'll be carrying the flag that Arthur has there. It flew over the GPO last week in Dublin, the General Post Office. It flew from the top of the General Post Office, and we will raise it in centenary tribute at Bowling Green.
Today is so special because it recognises the service and the contribution of the Irish in this city over so many generations. And how fantastic that we start here at the Irish Hunger Memorial. What a great New York commemoration. And now I'm going to hand over this flag. And we are so proud of this flag. It flew over the GPO and it symbolises peace between the two traditions on the island of Ireland. A challenge to all of us Irish, even today. Thank you so much, and I look forward to marching with you all and meeting you later.
Very appropriate that we walk today on the very same streets that the designer of the Irish flag, which we currently fly in Ireland to represent the Republic of Ireland, the same streets that the designer marched on in the 1800s, and that was General Francis Moore, who designed the current Irish flag that we fly today. Francis Moore, as was mentioned earlier on, was a commander of the 69th Regiment. The history of Ireland and the 69th Regiment of New York City has been intertwined tremendously. The regiment has led the New York City St. Patrick's Day Parade for 164 years. Today, needless to say, we are here to honor all New Yorkers, and I want to thank the local Manhattan Historical Society for reaching out and recognizing Irish independence at the same time that we honor and celebrate the United States independence. And as was said earlier on, many great Irish immigrants fought in the War of Revolution. The parade that was held here in Lower Manhattan on St. Patrick's Day in 1762 was the very first expression of freedom of religion in colonial times, a cornerstone that we hold dear today as part of the United States Constitution. Freedom of expression, freedom of religion, that we all will be celebrating here. Again, congratulations to Dr. Murphy on being the Grand Marshal and Adrian Flannery, and we look forward to having a wonderful weekend here in Lower Manhattan.
Thank the federal government because Federal Hall is opened up. It gives us a place to celebrate in, and it keeps the tradition going of revering everything that we're celebrating in Lower Manhattan. So again, thank you. Enjoy the 4th of July, but don't forget it's not just fireworks. It's also a celebration of our history in perhaps the greatest state of all of them, New York. And obviously I am partial to the borough of Manhattan. Thank you very much and enjoy the parade. But don't forget all the work we have to do, building infrastructure, maintaining infrastructure, and keeping our history alive for New Yorkers and everyone into the future. Thank you very much. It's a very special day. Thank you.
Greetings, felicitations.
Bells, bonfires, and illuminations.
it was started 200 years ago, 2 days from today, up in Rome, New York, with a great groundbreaking. But my friends, the money was difficult. It was decided it was too big to be a private enterprise. Plus, they wanted everyone to profit, not just a handful, but everyone in the great state of New York and in the United States as well. And thus, spearheaded by DeWitt Clinton, it passed through the legislature. But it took something rarely seen these days, and that was bipartisan cooperation. And thus the Federalists, and that was the party of DeWitt Clinton and Alexander Hamilton and John Adams, got together with the Democratic Republicans. Together, they created a commission and raised over a period of 7 years, $7 million. You could add another zero to that to get an understanding of how much it cost. But after about 30, 40 years, it more than 10 times paid the Empire State back once it had been established.
When you think of the birthplace of our nation, you probably don't think about Lower Manhattan. But on Independence Day, spectators and marchers saw just how historically significant this area really is.
Some people think of Boston, Philadelphia, Virginia, but really we are equal, if not more important than them.
The day started off with a bang in Battery Park. The Veteran Corps of Artillery of the state of New York fired a salute to all 50 states. The cannon tradition, enjoyed on land and by sea, is almost as old as this country.
We were founded by Washington's artillery officers in 1790, and since about 1790 we've been firing off the battery.
After the final blast, the Lower Manhattan Historical Association celebrated their 4th consecutive Independence Day parade.
We've designed this route specifically to cover the most important historic areas in Lower Manhattan, which means the most important in the city.
Marchers traveled through Bowling Green, past the New York Stock Exchange, and ended at the South Street Seaport. City Councilwoman Margaret Chin served as the Grand Marshal.
I hope that the tourist who's visiting and the residents, hope they will join us and really learn about the history of Lower Manhattan, because this is where the city began.
And despite the hot weather, organizers say the event is meant to highlight the city's role in the American Revolution.
Really, in my view, an alternative to other ways of celebrating July 4th, like the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, backyard barbecues. People can come out and really see the city on July 4th.
Reporting in Lower Manhattan, Summer Delaney, Pix 11 News.